Congratulations. You have tapped into what will probably be the best honest review of the new Whitney biopic. At least that's the way I see it. I think it's biopic. It's called Whitney Houston. Um, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Now, let me first say that I admire Whitney as a person. I thought she was beautiful in life, and of course, the amazing voice that people will never ever forget. So I've been following Whitney's rise and fall for basically my entire life. My very first introduction to Whitney Houston would have been The Bodyguard. I was probably about 8. My mom went out on a date. Me and my sister went on this date with her, and her boyfriend at the time took her and us to see The Bodyguard. So that was the very first time I can remember hearing her voice, or the voice, as Oprah Winfrey calls her. And it was the very first time that I saw her acting as well. It was actually her very first, well, not her very first acting role, but certainly the biggest acting role that she ever had. Although there were movies that I think she made a lot more money from, including no, it's Preacher's Wife. She made like $10 million from just taking on the role. At that time, she was the highest paid African American actress at the time. So this video is actually my first long form video. If you've already checked out my page, if you haven't, please subscribe. I'm Faith and Bishop 2, spelled out FaithAndBishop, and then the number 2. I am Faith and Bishop 2. I'm on YouTube and TikTok as well. Both platforms. On TikTok, we're considered TikTok famous. We're at about 25,000 friends in less than a year. And it's a lot of content that fortunately for us has gone viral. For good family content, fun stuff, dramatic stuff, real life moments, things that you'll enjoy. So if you haven't checked us out on TikTok, please do. And please subscribe to my YouTube page, which we're trying to get popping, you know what I'm saying? So I think we're approaching 500 subscribers, but we're just beginning to push this YouTube page. And again, we're still trying to find our footing there. Of course, a lot of my videos that were popular on TikTok have been moved over to YouTube as a backup, so to speak, so people get to enjoy them on both platforms. But in year 2023, Happy New Year, by the way. We're going to spend a lot more time developing our YouTube page. I have been trapped, well, I won't say trapped, but chosen to be in the house on quarantine for the last couple of years. My wife and I, fortunately, have been working from home. So we're just beginning to venture out. In the meantime, we end up making a whole nother baby during our quarantine. So now we have a 14-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old, our 1-year-old. And all this is going to tie into the Whitney review in just a moment. So please believe you're still tuned into the right page. I'm just giving you a little bit of background on myself before we get this thing rolling. But we made a pandemic baby. That's what everybody's calling them. And so he just turned 1. We had a big Mickey Mouse party. We took him to Disney World in December, the week leading into Christmas. And then in the meantime, we started, going back out a little bit. Like I said, we basically stayed at home for a couple of years. So we're just starting to get out in the real world and get back to some form of normalcy. Part of that normalcy was actually returning to the movies. And I've returned to the movies 3 times in a month. I first saw Wakanda Forever, which I'll review in another video if you guys like what I'm doing. There's the second one that we went and saw the week that we left for Disney, which was Avatar 2, which I'll talk about in a different video. And the latest video that we watched, or movie that we've gone and seen, was Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody, which is what you clicked on, and which we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into. So before I give my critique, because I'm going to be honest, I have to be brutally honest. I will give you a little bit of the background. Again, I can say that I am a Whitney Houston fan, as I am a fan of all great R&B singers, the real ones, because in 2023 or anything past 2000, singing was an extra, it's not a real requirement. I grew up in the height of R&B, 80s and the 90s, where you actually had to have sing and have real talent. You know what I'm saying? Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Luther Vandross. The list is long and vast, but I am deeply steeped in those real singers, and Whitney Houston by far is the greatest of all singers. Again, I love Aretha, I love Anita, I love Tony, I love Luther, I love Teddy Pendergrass, I love Sam Cooke, I love all the greats in R&B, but there's Whitney Houston, and then everybody else vocally, and that's just my opinion. Female wise, again, I don't compare my male vocalist to my female vocalist. Luther will sit at the top tier for male vocalists, in my opinion. But Whitney, again, was just in a stratosphere all of her own. I think her voice, which Oprah Winfrey herself called the voice, is just that anointing for those that are believers and of church. You know exactly what that means. That voice was just touched by God, and anytime you heard it, especially in its peak and its prime, you could hear that anointing just flowing through. And I think that's what people failed to understand and capture, and what made her voice so different from all the rest. If you've ever watched her in concert, I was never able to see her live. I've seen all of the concert footage, though. I've watched all of the movies. I've read the books. Cissy Houston's Remembering Whitney, Robin Crawford's A Song for You, Bobby Brown's Every Little Step. So when I'm giving this critique, I'm coming with a vast amount of information that's available for anybody. And I've watched every single piece of concert footage they've ever put out on her. My favorites being the Welcome Home Hero, where she did all of her hits at the time, but her greatest moment, I think, in that whole show was The Greatest Love of All, of course, and then All the Man That I Need, which she sang in this red, sexy dress. I mean, she was just peak, beautiful, gorgeous model, fine, and beautiful singing Whitney, you guys. It's hard to believe that people, her voice becomes her looks become second to her voice. You know what I'm saying? That's an amazing thing. I mean, because she was a gorgeous woman. She was just absolutely stunning. But like I said, when you hear her, and her looks become just second to the voice. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of my favorites. I loved her in the South Africa concert for Nelson Mandela later on down. And I think that was the greatest, one of her greatest shows, start to finish. You know what I'm saying? I've seen lots of talent. I've seen lots of people live. I've seen lots of people in concert. But that is her voice is so great that I don't even have to watch her. I've seen Beyonce live, but I have to watch Beyonce. When it comes down to Whitney, I could turn my phone over and just listen to the voice come through my earbuds and have the same experience. You know what I'm saying? She was just an amazing talent, and we do miss her. I do hate that she succumbed to the demons, which I think everybody struggles with in one regard or another. Her demons just included, our drug addiction, obviously. There was rumors of molestation, which we can or cannot talk about. But that's in a Whitney documentary. Again, I'm telling you guys, I've seen all of this stuff. In the Whitney documentary, there's a brother that claimed that a family member, I believe it was Dee Dee Warwick, a sister of Dionne Warwick, that he claims molested him and Whitney. This wasn't talked about in the actual Whitney film, which will, it's going to be some of my critiques. But, and then there's, of course, the story around Robin Crawford, her personal assistant, her best friend. She claimed that to never be gay. Robin Crawford, in her story, in her book, claims that they were lovers, and that relationship went on for a year before Whitney approached her, gave her a Bible, and basically said, "We're done with this. I want a family. What we're doing is not right. This is not right by the Bible, and I don't want to do this anymore." And they remained friends thereafter, according to Robin Crawford. Again, I don't know any of these people personally. I'm just going off of books, interviews, concerts, and all the interviews I've ever seen of Whitney. I've seen every single interview of hers as well. She denied it. Robin Crawford claims that there was a real relationship. In the movie, I Want to Dance with Somebody, the relationship around Robin Crawford is put in there and explored. This movie is approved by the family and was produced by Clive Davis, the person that brought her into the music industry and guided her career all the way to the end. So if it's there, you know what I'm saying. If Robin is saying it as well, then there has to be likely some truth to it. But again, Whitney's not here to defend herself, so we'll just leave it at that. But it was indeed included in the film. Neither here nor there. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't take it away from her voice or her talent or what she contributed to America as a whole, the world as a whole. She was a global superstar. She was the voice. She was, for a time, America's sweetheart, and that nothing that she did in her personal life can take away from that. Again, we'll talk about Bobby Brown as well. Um, Bobby, they did talk about Bobby. I do like that they did take the time to clear up the fact that it wasn't Bobby that started her into addiction. Um, Although that was tackled in a Oprah Winfrey interview where her own brother Michael, who was very close in age to her, claimed to have started drugs or her into cocaine and weed when they were both still teenagers, way before she met Bobby. So we know for a fact that it wasn't Bobby. Although I will admit, media-wise, Bobby took a lot of the heat, and I threw a couple of stones his way. So Bobby Brown, if you ever see this, I do apologize. I didn't know. I didn't know. Although I will say, I'm married myself. Me and my wife have been married 17 years. We've been together since 7th grade. I can say that husbands do have a great influence on their wives. So even though Bobby didn't necessarily start her in addiction, his antics, which are well documented, well put out in the media, probably didn't help the matter. And he was struggling with his own addictions as well. So when you have two addicts together that basically form a codependent relationship, it's just it's just a thing. So we can get off into to the review now. I'm sorry, I spent 12 minutes going over all of that again. Please hit the subscribe button if you like what you hear. And at some point, I'll start going live on YouTube as I do on TikTok. I do go live on TikTok every single Friday. Now, my TikToks, the videos are for the family, but my TikTok lives are strictly for the adults. We talk about any and everything. No topic is off limits, but it is a respectful place where you can be open and honest, and there's just a level of respect that I give all of my guests, and that is required when you're in my live. So please consider joining me on Friday nights. I go on typically about 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, and that's basically every Friday night. And again, check me out on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button if you're liking what you're hearing thus far. Let's get into the film. The film has now been retitled Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. Let me first say that I absolutely hated the title of the film. I Want to Dance with Somebody was just not a great title for a film. I've seen tons of biopics, however you want to pronounce it. Some that come to mind, Ray, or What's Love Got to Do with It? You know what I mean? The titles just made so much sense. Ray, self-explanatory. What's Love Got to Do with It? Although it was a song of Tina Turner's song, it was a song that basically gave the arc of the film. You know what I'm saying? What's Love Got to Do with It? The song itself is a question. This is if this is supposed to be love, then I don't want it. If it's going to cause heartache and pain, then you could just have that, throw it away. That's the gist of that song. So to title the film, What's Love Got to Do with It? And then you see her go through her ups, her downs, the abuse, and ultimately break away from Ike Turner to become a superstar for the second time, all on her own. Title of the film made perfect sense. I Want to Dance with Somebody, just absolutely, even though they made an attempt at trying to marry it to the film's title or to the film's arc, it didn't work. Me as a person who knows, who's gone through all of her music catalog, she was on the decline with this particular song, but I think the title of the film should have been Nothing But Love. That was off of her the last release of hers, I Look to You, which came out in 2009. Not her best album by then. Her voice her high notes were basically gone, and her voice was severely impacted um, by some things that were just self-inflicted, and probably some vocal struggles that began way back in the mid 90s, which we all know about, but were compounded by continued smoking of weed, cigarettes, weed laced with cocaine, that kind of stuff, which severely damaged her vocal ability. So her last album was kind of a shadow of what she used to be. But the title of the film should have been Nothing But Love, because this woman had nothing but love to give, and that's all she ever sought after her entire life. See how easy? See how Clive should have called me. That makes just so much more sense. Nothing but love. She was looking for nothing but love. She gave nothing but love each and every time she was on stage. That's at her best, her peak, her height, and even at her lowest points at the end, where she was basically going on tour for financial reasons, knowing that the voice was failing. You know what I mean? They actually put her on steroids, which is why you saw her or bloated or bigger in the final set of concerts. They were trying to preserve that voice, but that instrument just had been through so much. I hated to see her on the decline. You know what I'm saying? So I think the name of the film should have been Nothing But Love. I just think that would have been much more impactful than I Want to Dance with Somebody. Although I Want to Dance with Somebody was a big hit. It was a big song back in the 80s, but it just didn't encompass what I think the film attempted to reach or attempted to do. And I think in parts that it was a failure as well. Naomi Ackie was the person chosen to play Whitney. Of course, there's lots of people that complained about her look. No, she did not look like Whitney Houston. There were times like when she did the Star Spangled Banner, where I was like, oh, she does. That was good. To me, I felt okay. I can see Whitney there. When she did "It's Not But Right, But It's Okay" and the black leather, the Dolce and Gabbana period. Which, by the way, people, if you didn't know, she was out of cash at that time. And Dolce and Gabbana actually furnished all of her clothing throughout that tour, because at that time she didn't even have money for new costumes. You know what I'm saying? So she was really going through it, and some of this is explored in the film, but not to the depth that even I know, based on everything that I've read and seen and watched. But that's going to get into some of my complaints about the film. But her acting, Naomi Ackie, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think she's a British actress. She had to wear prosthetic teeth. She had to learn the American accent, and then Whitney's mannerisms. I think as an actress, I think she did great. Of course, we couldn't have Halle Berry playing Whitney Houston. I don't think any actress that we know, you know what I mean, would have worked in the role. So I didn't mind them using somebody. I think she was in Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I never watched it. I don't think it would have worked with a really known actress to me. So choosing her was fine. Although I do think part of Whitney's appeal was her drop dead gorgeous look. So I think maybe we could have looked a little harder to find someone that looked a little bit more like. Although Angela Bassett looked nothing like Tina Turner, and it still worked, but her acting was just so phenomenal that you kind of forgot that she looked nothing like Tina Turner. In this case, because she was packaged early on by Clive Davis. That was part of her appeal. I just think that maybe we could have got someone that looked a little bit more like Whitney, but that's not taken away from her acting. Her acting was really good as Whitney. We had Clark Peters as John Huston. Same complaint. He looked absolutely nothing like John. Although his acting was good as well. Cissy Houston, I liked Cissy Houston. I know. Oh crap! I thought I wrote her name down. Tamar Tooney, I think is her name. And I only know her from Law and Order, SVU. I loved her in Law and Order, and I loved her as Cissy Houston. Cissy Houston is of the church, but she was really tough. Any interview I've ever seen her in, she's just very very stern, very tough, and I like that she played that role out in that same way. You know, she was a Christian, but she was a cursing Christian, and they didn't shy away from that either. You know what I mean? So I just think that she did a really good job as Sissy Houston, as I know her based on all the interviews and the television show that I've seen her in as well. But yeah, so those were some of my favorites. Of course, Clive Davis, who was played by, is it? Um, sorry, I do not see his name. Oh, Stanley Tucci. He was great. I really believed he was Clive Davis. I thought he did a really good job. So the acting I didn't really have a problem with. My chief complaints come with knowing the story, knowing a lot more. For somebody that knows nothing about Whitney, you'll enjoy it. You'll absolutely enjoy it. If you're just there for the music, I'll say at least an hour of the 2.5 hours is just straight concert. You know what I mean? And I don't mind that, but I just felt like so much was put into the concert that not enough time was spent in the story. Again, this is a life of 48 years and a career that started in her late teens, early 20s. So it was a lot of time to cover. You know what I mean? To be perfectly honest, I think she would have been better served with a TV series, kind of like the Jacksons, if you remember that, or even the Aretha Franklin one that had several episodes. I think that would be much better than trying to cram a life with that many accolades and that many ups and that many downs into 2.5 hours. I just think the story suffered from the record company and the producers and everybody trying to get us to remember the magic, remember the greatness. And again, not taking anything away from that, but I just felt like the same amount of time that we put into those concerts that you could easily see on YouTube should have been put into the actual development of the characters outside of Whitney and the overall storyline. You know what I mean? They made sure to end the story or end the film on a high note. One of her greatest performances of I think it was 1994. I can't remember which. Maybe it was the American Music Awards. I can't remember which award show it was, but I remember Will Smith being one of the people that brought her out on stage, and she sang Porgy and Bess and I Am Telling You, which would easily rival Jennifer Holliday's and Jennifer Hudson's. It was spectacular. And then she transitioned into I Have Nothing. So that's the film begins and ends in those places, which were, you know, high moments for her. So I like that you ended on a high note, but I would have liked to have taken the full roller coaster ride with Whitney. I mean, it's been done in other films, but not to the satisfaction that it deserves, or not to the degree that it should be explored. You know what I mean? There was a lot that could have been covered that wasn't. You know, it was kind of like just hitting the high moments of her life. Star Spangled Banner, Bodyguard, Losing a Baby. You see the drugs just peep in every now and then. You know what I mean? It was just a lot of it was just felt rushed, and a lot of it was just kind of glazed over, which is another one of my complaints. Musically, though, it was great. I loved that they did choose Naomi, because Naomi actually can sing. So those parts that required her to sing, they did a beautiful job of blending her voice along with Whitney's. And when you transition over to Whitney, of course, Whitney's voice is one of a kind. So you know when you move to Whitney, but the ease in which we transition from the actress voice to Whitney's voice was very well done. So again, the concerts, the recreation of the videos, all of that was well done. It's the storyline that I have complaints about. There were lots of unanswered questions. They opened the door to a lot of these chapters of Whitney's lives. This is me opening the door. But they never actually really answer the questions. The Robin thing, I think they dove into pretty good, so you got a real understanding. But you never see the way that Robin describes the sudden cutoff of that relationship. It was glazed over. You did see the tension between her and Bobby. but not to the degree that even Whitney described, even in her Oprah Winfrey interview. She talked about being spat on. She talked about the domestic violence situation where she slammed against the wall and she hits him over the head and he starts bleeding. I mean, none of this stuff is there. You see one incident that gets kind of tense, and after that, the relationship is basically over. So, I mean, I understand that the family, perhaps, and the record company, and maybe even the producers just wanted it to be a feel-good film. But when we talk about biopics, you know, my first two are Ray and What's Love Got to Do with It. Those films take you there. You feel like you're in that world. In this point, it felt more of like a musical documentary. It felt more of a Broadway production. You know how you have speaking parts and then you sing, and speaking parts and then you sing. That's what it kind of felt like. And I felt like the audience was robbed of the real story that could have been told, or the cautionary story that could have been told, with regards to all that comes with being an icon. You know what I mean? So those are some of my complaints. The story, the arc could have been much stronger if they would have followed the timeline of her life. You know what I mean? They did a pretty terrible job of piecing the music pieces and the looks. Whitney, for artists like Whitney, Michael, Prince, even Beyonce, every time they came back for their next evolution, their look changed some. Something about them changed. In Michael's case, it was his skin color and his hair, and his nose. He kept getting new noses with just about every new album. But I don't mean anything that dramatic. But Whitney's hair would change, or her look would change. She'd get a little less. You know, she started off super pristine. She almost looked like an African goddess in that first album cover. The second album cover is the white T-shirt and the jeans with a little belly showing. That big '80s thing. When she returned from Your Baby Your Night, she's on a motorcycle. The hair is shorter. She has that little rougher edge to her. You know what I mean? By my love is your love. She's the polished diva, as they call it. You know what I mean? So we remember these errors, and they kept bouncing from era to era, and some looks were just out of place with the song. Some of these songs, if you followed her, if you knew the timeline of the recordings were not in the proper place. So these were complaints that people that really have followed her will definitely have. But again, musicality, they hit all the big songs that you will know and love. So if you're going for that, you will definitely enjoy it. But if you're looking for the story to take you on a roller coaster ride, it never really does. It takes you up. You'll have little minor dips here and there, but you're here the whole time. And that wasn't her story, and that wasn't her real life, and that's not most people's real lives. So I just felt like it was kind of a little too sanitized, I would say it that way. And for that, I just think it just failed as a biopic in those regards. But again, musically, you'll love it. And if you want to if you're comfortable with just getting here and just gliding along to the end, that's fine. But I prefer when it comes down to biopic stories about people's real lives, that you get to see the peaks and the valleys, I mean, the failure of her voice is mentioned like this much, and we know her voice, began to fail the late '90s. So how is it that that much attention is paid to a voice where you're known for? You're the greatest voice. I mean, her Star Spangled Banner is still number one. No, excuse me. Nobody, in my opinion, has ever even touched it, and may never even touch it. But that voice fails. And no attention. I mean, this much attention is paid to it, and by paid to it, they just replay some of the clips of people complaining about her not sounding good at the Nothing But Love tour. Again, Nothing But Love should have been the title of the film. So those are some of the things that really pulled me down from wanting. Well, I really wanted this to be a 10 out of 10, but I have to be honest, and it simply, it just wasn't. It wasn't. It was a decent watch, you know, for Whitney fans. Yeah, please go out and support the film. Or stream it at home whenever it becomes available. It may already be available. I'm not sure, but you know, if you're here for a real review, I'm giving you the ups and the downs. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think I've hit everything I want to hit. And look at me, I'm only at 29 minutes, which is good for me because I'm extraordinarily long-winded. Um, when we're gonna come down to the review and the rating of this film, I have to be honest. Um, Based on the books I've read, I mean, I could be here 3-4 hours and tell you everything that I've read and how what remains consistent across all the books I've read, from the mother, the ex-husband, and the personal assistant, best friend, quote unquote, ex-lover. And then all of the documentaries and footage I've seen. I think I could have written a much better script than the one that was presented and delivered. So when it comes down to a review, I will have to give it, out of 10, it would have to be probably about a 5.5, 6. I'll give it a solid 6. You know, her acting was good. And I've given you a list of some of the complaints that I had about the film. So that is indeed my first attempt at a long form video. Again, if you like my review, please like, subscribe, send me some comments. If you hate my review and wish I will never do another one, please let me know that in the comment section as well. And I may pivot and try something else. Although I'm an avid movie watcher, I am a voracious reader as well. So, you know, these are some of the things I like to talk about and come in, and I enjoy interacting with people and making new friends. So please subscribe to Faith and Bishop 2 on TikTok and on YouTube. Check out some of my short videos. I have a documentary that's out as well. It's called Blue Blessings, The Bonner Family Stories, and it tells the real life story of me, myself, my wife, who I've been with since the 7th grade, since we were 12 years old. And you want to hear a powerful story, that is one. And there's nothing that's left untold. We talk about abandonment. We talk about death of parents. We talk about any and everything in that film, and I think it's helped a lot of people who have struggled with having babies. You'll hear about my wife and what we've gone through, how I nearly lost her. Carrying our first child, and how we got to the second child, which I mentioned at the beginning, start of this video. So please check that out. Please again subscribe on TikTok, YouTube, Faith and Bishop 2. Once again, my purpose on all of my social media platforms is to educate, enlighten, and above all else entertain. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, and please let me know down in the comment section. I am one of the creators that actually responds to comments. So with that, Happy New Year. So good to meet you if I haven't already, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you, and you have a good night.